Welcome everybody to another Key Ministry Disability Ministry video roundtable. This is a special one that we've added, and this is using technology in ministry with vulnerable people. My name is Beth, I'm with Key Ministry, and we've got the Key Ministry team here today. Catherine Boyle, who is the Director of Mental Health Ministry, and our President and Founder, Dr. Steve Gersevich. We also have a very special guest today, Nils Smith, and I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. G to introduce Nils and what we're going to talk about today. By the way, this is streaming live on Facebook on the Key Ministry Facebook page. This will be recorded. If you are watching live, we encourage you to use the chat box. If you're on the Zoom call right now, we encourage you to use the chat box. It's located on the bottom of your screen. If you are on Facebook, you can comment in the chat, and we will try to monitor both places so that you can get your questions answered.
Well, in any event, I am delighted to be able to share the knowledge, wisdom, and experience of Nils Smith with the disability ministry community. We've known Nils now for about 6 or 7 years. That he had been the online pastor at Community Bible Church when we started doing some experiments, partnering with them around using online church as a way of reaching families who have kids with disabilities. During that time, again, Nils has become quite the guru. You know, he has a very popular podcast. He has all kinds of free resources available for churches on a variety of different platforms. That more recently he's been working with Dunham and Company, Nick Vujicic's ministry, and has worked and consulted with a number of large Christian organizations, including ours, to help them find ways to better use technology in ministry. And so if you're interested in learning more, I would encourage you, Nils is delighted when people, follow him on Twitter, Facebook, and go to nilssmith.com if you want to see some samples of some of the work that he's done and some of the organizations that he's working with. So Nils, welcome, and thanks so much for making a little bit of time for us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate the introduction.
So I guess the first question that I would go ahead and throw out, because, people in disability ministry, we have lots of families right now who are struggling with lots of needs. The folks that we serve in ministry are more likely to have medical conditions that have resulted in the need for more stringent isolation and quarantine. Are there any apps or websites or technology available that churches have been using to help them to identify the needs of people within their specific congregation, and then to be able to match people who have needs with helpers who are able to address them?
Yeah, there's two things that I've seen. One that's fairly simple and probably more common, and then another that's really more high tech, but it is a really powerful tool. So the first is Facebook groups. Facebook groups is a platform that so many people have gotten used to for garage sale groups or moms groups. So my wife is on an Upper East Side moms group, and they have conversations all day to learn from each other around things that they're specifically interested in. And so what you're seeing is a lot of churches are now setting up Facebook groups, which is now, especially in this time, become in many ways the lobby where people are relationally making connections, or they're sharing, there's this person in our congregation that has this need. Is there anybody who can help meet this need? And it's done through a comment thread. So it's not necessarily real specific and trackable, but it's very natural for how people are already engaging online. I actually just got a message this morning that my mother-in-law saw that my aunt posted in a Facebook group that my grandmother needs eggs. Well, my grandmother's in her late 80s. She doesn't need to go be getting eggs right now. And so my mother-in-law is going to take my grandmother eggs. And so you see just through just natural social media engagement where needs are being met, communicated, and then people even seeing, I know somebody who can meet that need, and sharing that. The technology that I'm seeing, though, that I've been very excited about over the last couple of years is a platform called Vomo. You can go to their website, vomo.org, VOMO.org. And this is a platform that's all about helping your church members find volunteer opportunities and for your church to post volunteer opportunities. So this might be you post volunteer opportunities for Salvation Army or for Goodwill in your neighborhood, but it also could be that there's a specific need in your church that you need to put out there that somebody could meet. And one of the great things even about VOMO is it might not even be somebody in your church that meets that need, but it allows your church to put needs out there in the community. And people that are a part of that volunteer community can meet those. And you could set your own systems of where it's private just for your church or where it's open for anyone. And then the other great thing that the church gets to do is now measure the community impact that their congregation is having by finding those opportunities. And then you use the app and you say, I did this. I spent an hour a week doing this or 2 hours a week. And we met this need, and you can collectively see, boy, we met 112 needs in our community this month together. And here's a list of those needs met. And so it's a more formalized way to do it. I think it's based on the size of the church. So it can be fairly affordable. I think it starts at $29 a month. But it's a really good platform, easy to set up. I've gotten to know the founders a little bit, and they're just really great guys with a heart to help empower the church to meet needs.
Well, to follow up on that, when either people who are in leadership in a church or individual members of the church are trying to facilitate these kinds of conversations on Facebook, given that more people have taken to social media and there's a lot more traffic than normal the last week or two, are there any hints that you would give to people in terms of like the specific format or the way that they should post things to make them more likely to be seen by the greatest number of people in their church?
I think at this point, there are two things. One is people need hope and they need inspiration. And so leaning in towards inspiring and ministering to people on social media, rather than just saying, we have an announcement and click this link to come to our service this weekend. You don't have to wait till they come to an online service or an online small group. You can minister to them in their newsfeed. And so posting inspirational content is always what you need to lead with on social media. And then with that video, there's nothing more personal on social media than video connection. If this were just an audio webinar, there would still be a disconnect. I mean, I think even seeing our faces creates a personal connection to the messages being communicated. And so when you can communicate, because your passion, your heart, your compassion can be communicated that much more articulately and clearly to those watching it. And so I think leaning into video, and the truth is we all have a great video camera right in our pockets. And so we're one click away from personally engaging people in a very real and tangible way with our smartphone.
So another issue that comes up with us in disability ministry, here in Ohio, our governor, Mike DeWine, and the medical director, Amy Acton, have been putting on daily briefings that are widely viewed. And the third most recognizable person in our state right now is probably the sign interpreter who stays alongside Governor DeWine each time he makes a public appearance. And with all the efforts that churches are making to put more content available online, are there some relatively simple ways that they can make as much of it as possible, as accessible as possible, not just for people, who are hearing impaired, but are there other little features embedded or hidden in technology to be able to help us to make more of what we're putting out more accessible?
Yeah, I don't know that it's always about accessibility, although I do think you should have a home base, and that should probably be your website, as a church. And so being able to make things collectively in one page, ideally would be the go-to, like always check into this page. This is where we'll be updating. But I think that the missing piece here from a communication standpoint is taking news to people. And the most direct form of communication that we still have digitally is email. And I think at this time, now if you're emailing the same thing over and over again, you're over emailing. But I don't think you're going to over communicate in this time to your congregation, to those people that need to hear from you. And so leaning into this direct form of communication, where on Facebook or on Twitter, on Instagram, we're depending on their algorithm to show it to people. Well, email goes to everybody and they choose whether they look at it or not. And so I think we need to be leaning into that direct communication channel of email to make sure we get our key information out to our people, and make sure, I think the key is, are you providing value? So any post you post on social media should not be because you needed to post once a day on social media. It should be because it's providing value in some way to the people consuming it. Email, the same way. You shouldn't send an email because you think you need to send a daily email. You should look at what's the most valuable thing you can communicate through that email. So I think that's the biggest missing tool right now, is email.
So, you know, having like been around the church my whole life, like compared to other segments of society, we tend to skew older, you know, and sometimes like a lot of the people, like the folks who are like the bedrock of the church, you know, maybe people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, who aren't as comfortable with or familiar with like the various uses of technology. Like in addition to like stuff that you've created, like where would you point a church to if they wanted like to help my 80-year-old grandmother or my 80-year-old mother-in-law to be able to like get online, you know, to participate in these groups and to get more connected, because it's our older people right now for health reasons who are the ones who tend to be most isolated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll share both from a resource standpoint and from a hardware standpoint. And so from a device standpoint, what we did with my grandmother, who's in her late 80s, is we sent her an Amazon Kindle Fire tablet. They're $50 on Amazon. There's one that's $40, one that's $50. We went with the higher one. And because iPads are fairly expensive, and honestly, for my grandmother, they're more complicated to use. And so the Amazon Fire tablet was real easy for her to turn on, plug in, and because we have one in our house, and you might even buy one for yourself, to say, okay, let's do this together. Let's get on a call. Now push this button. Now connect to your Wi-Fi here. And that allows my grandmother to watch church and stream church. And we show her how to do that in the web browser. We do FaceTime video calls with her. It's not actually FaceTime. We do Zoom through that tablet with her. And so it's really a simple hardware. She doesn't need complex hardware, fancy hardware. She needs simple. And a tablet for her is a good, simple device for her to get used to. So I found that device, and it's the most affordable to get out there, to be the best technology that's accessible. On the resource side, you know, I think the best I found is people actually creating their own tutorial videos for the individual. And so if you can literally create a video, and you can use, and I'm a Mac user, so you can use QuickTime to record your screen. And you can share, you know, you can basically click here. And this is the step-by-step process to do a Zoom call. This is the step-by-step process to donate online. This is the step-by-step process to watch our live stream. And so the clearer you can 1, 2, 3, you know, step this in even if it's screenshot pictures, but making it as clear and as easy as possible for people to do it. And then I would say the other side is to be patient, you know, and understand that this is a different language, and honestly, that some people never thought they would have to learn. And now out of necessity, that it's the only way they can have human interaction. And so I think being extremely patient, you know, with those that are struggling with the technology and the time, because they need it, and they need your patience, and they need to see you. So really working through that and slowly, you know, working through that.
So are you aware of like any specific technologies that like folks who are involved, you know, in pastoral care ministries are using nowadays to like reach out to folks? Because again, you know, hospitals, you know, and nursing homes are putting restrictions in place in terms of who's allowed to visit. So how are some of your colleagues in the church finding workarounds for that?
Yeah, Zoom, you know, we're using here is what I found to be what most churches are using. And a lot of churches have reached out to me of what's a free option. And Google Hangouts is probably the best free option out there, but especially for those that are not good with technology, it's really difficult to use. Zoom costs $15 a month. The nonprofit can get a half off discount, but It is just the easiest to use, the most functional. Even with low bandwidth, it works better than any other platform. And so Zoom really has become the go-to for most churches at this point that I've seen in the engagement happening there.
One thing I would just go ahead and share for that I discovered the other day, our practice as of Monday is doing everything through Zoom, like all of our patient encounters. And I had thought that I would have to buy a pro account for everyone in our practice. But with the free basic account, there's no limit in terms of like how long or how many one-on-one type of conversations you have. Now, you need the pro account if you're going to be going ahead and doing groups online, but I was able to set up a free basic account for like all of the clinicians that are working in our practice. It's going to enable them, to do like one-on-one follow-up with their kids and families. And so the churches may want to think about that as well, that maybe there are a couple of people on staff that get, that get the pro account to be able to manage groups, but you could give then 10 other basic accounts that are linked then to the pro account, for free for other people to be able to do like one-on-one, discipleship and encouragement support. So after having like learned new stuff, every time I talk to you, what are the ways, like what are the most innovative things that you've seen churches doing the last week or two in terms of using technology to promote ministry at this time?
There's a lot of different things, and I think there's a lot of people that are just trying to figure it out on the fly, and I love that so many pastors that never even thought that they were going to need to lean into technology, and honestly saw it as a distraction from ministry, are now leaning in and figuring some things out. One of the fun things I'm seeing is a lot of pastors getting on Instagram Live or Facebook Live and just doing some live Q&A with their congregation, and them even saying, I don't know how this thing works, and being transparent in that, but I just want to be available to you. And so a lot of, there's a pastor in California that I was just talking to yesterday who is doing a daily devotional on Facebook Live because he knows his congregation needs to be hearing from him on a daily basis and needs that time, that consistent engagement with him and with the church in that way. And so I think that's been a neat use of technology. And honestly, it's not real complicated. I saw a Redeemer Church here in New York City. I met with them yesterday, and what they did is they sent basically a little kit to all of their campus pastors with a little ring light, a little microphone that connects to your iPhone, and a little tripod. And they bought it on Amazon and had it shipped to each of their campus pastors so that they can each be doing live videos or just on-demand videos quickly and easily to better engage with their campuses. And so they've seen their pastors, and in many ways too, with that situation, they become competitive with each other. And so they're learning from each other as they're doing it and trying to get more people on their live stream. So it's been fun to see that kind of engagement. Another thing that I've seen is a lot of people leaning into YouTube as a platform. YouTube is how a lot of people watch TV now, and it's also a free platform for both live streaming and on-demand video. The other thing, though, that people don't often realize about YouTube is it's the number 3 most used connected TV app. And so when you think about Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Roku, you think about Netflix and Hulu, but YouTube is number 3. And so a lot of people use that to watch television now, and your church can be easily on a television through YouTube. And so as you put content, or you think about even small group content that people might want to watch, or your church services that are likely, watching it on your phone is awkward, and especially if you're trying to have the family gathered around one device. Well, going through YouTube, it can be on the TV really easily. So it's been neat to see. And then I think the other thing I've seen is people leaning into sending people the little Fire TV sticks. And so the Amazon Fire TV sticks are $30, I believe. And you can just send that to somebody that, plugs right into their HDMI in their TV and connects to the internet. And now they can watch the services on television easily. So just some of these, I think people are kind of working around, how do we do this in an affordable way? And how do we, get creative with how we're using it? And I think, we're probably going to have several more weeks of really people figuring out, and I'd say the service that's coming up that a lot of pastors are thinking about is Easter, is obviously around the corner. And so how do we really make Easter special in this way, and beginning to think about it. So I'm really interested to see what some churches come up with when it comes to Easter and making that a special online experience.
Well, I know that Beth and some folks from our team have been monitoring the chat, and that there are some questions and some things that are coming up that they're going to share. But I can tell you, and this is like, I'm going to surprise like one member of my team. One of the things that I did for our church is that I volunteered to be on, the online hosts who are managing the chat. And so I've thought that we might go ahead and actually do a little bit of Facebook advertising to families with disabilities in the area, for the period of time that I'm on the chat. And that like other people who are involved in disability ministry might want to think about doing that, and then doing some targeted Facebook advertising specifically to reach out to families in their area with disabilities who don't have a church.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, so Beth, I'll get out of your way.
All right, I want to bring us up to speed on what's going on in the chat, because that's something that you all can't view. So I think we've covered some of it, but it was noted that by Richard that for some of our intellectually and developmentally disabled folks, that accessing Facebook is better than accessing a web page. So, and I think you spoke to that a little bit with the Facebook Lives. So I wanted to,
and I would say that's holistic. I think that the largest group on Facebook is now people over the age of 55. It's not, it's all generations. I looked at a chart the other day that showed how the age variance. And while there is younger people are more engaged on Instagram and some of these other platforms, they're still spending a significant amount of time, and they use it almost like an email address. Like, I guess I got to check it, but they're not posting as much there. And a couple of things that were interesting about Facebook. A Facebook team member I met with the other day said the average American scrolls their newsfeed the length, and on their phone, the length of the Empire State Building every single day. And they log into Facebook over 20 times a day, spending about 52 minutes a day on average, holistically between 20 different visits. So people are very active on Facebook, and we're not as engaged. I mean, we don't just open up our phone and go to a website unless we're taken there. And Facebook is often the first app that people open and just start scrolling.
And probably more now, more than ever.
It's actually up 20% in the last 2 weeks, Facebook and Instagram engagement.
Yeah. So there was a question about, in terms of connection, is video better or live better? I'm not sure.
So I have an opinion on this. My opinion is that video, on-demand video is better. I think there's a lot of things you can do with on-demand video that allows you to clean it up, to edit it, to minimize issues. The advantage to live is an event like this where we're taking Q&A, where there's live interaction that's happening. If you're not doing any kind of interactive elements to your experience, it might as well just be a video. I've been doing daily Facebook Live, YouTube Live videos. And the other thing I see, though, to live videos is I get 10 times the engagement after the video than I do during the video. So in many ways, you're actually putting the video out as an on-demand video anyway. You just don't have the ability to edit it. And so if you're looking to do a quick video, live might be good. But I'd say for quality's sake, I think an on-demand, creating a video and then uploading it gives you more opportunity. And there's so many times, after this webinar, there's going to be things that I think about of, man, I wish I would have said it this way, or wish I would have done that. Well, if you do it live, you don't get to change that. But if you do it on demand, you get a chance to, change your message and communicate more clearly. So that's what I lean towards. Live also used to be ranked higher in the algorithm of Facebook, so they would show it to more people. That's no longer the case. And so you're not going to get it. There's not advantages to live in that way anymore.
Okay, so that kind of addresses this next comment. So their church held online service for the first time last week, and the platform crashed nationwide. So it got them wondering, is there necessity for every church to broadcast online? Should we consolidate it all? Steve mentioned the online chat during service. Should churches be doing that rather than putting on a worship service themselves? And I can tell you, for our church, we are putting we have baypres.tv, so we're putting it out there on streaming at certain times, but it's actually a service that was recorded the day before.
Yep.
So it's not live. So there is that editing,
Yep.
but the chat function that Steve mentioned is live. So it still has that interactive component.
So one of the things that I think is unique about and a lot of about live streaming is everyone is watching the same thing at the same time. And so there is advantage that's advantageous. And I think it's how people are used to worshiping is it's collective at the same time. The tool that a lot of ministries are using is called restream.io. It will only allow you to stream a video up to 30 minutes, but it pushes it out live. And so you use that platform and you push it to a live, to Facebook Live or to YouTube Live. And you can even say, I want this to go live at 11 a.m. I want this to go live at noon. And then it looks live for everyone and the experience is live and the chat is live, but the video itself isn't live. So I'm seeing a lot of churches use that functionality and that's what so I go to Hillsong here in New York. That's what they're using here with YouTube. And so it's not live. It's just people are watching it at the same time and they're kind of almost like the service times.
Along with the online service, are there closed captioning services that can be used with Facebook Live?
Not that I'm aware of with Facebook Live. Facebook, there are services, and even Facebook's function with closed captions on on-demand videos have gotten a whole lot better. And so using those and then editing those after the fact, YouTube, the same. And so I am seeing more and more people using their native tools for closed captions. My team does, and I didn't write it down prior to this. They use a closed caption tool that I can't remember, and I might ask them and share later. But I do think just leaning into Facebook and YouTube, they're giving us a lot of great free technology that's really good, and so it's hard to beat. Especially YouTube on the Google side, we see better use. A lot of times, my team will actually take, if we have the same video, YouTube's closed captions, and then bring those over to Facebook.
Can you and we'll put this on our website too, but can you give some specifics for the microphone and the kit that came from Amazon?
Yeah.
What's a good,
yes.
baseline kit to have?
Yeah, I'll actually pull out a couple tools here in my desk. So this is a tool that I use. I don't know exactly what tripod they used, but this is literally just a little tripod that can sit on my desk, or these things can wrap around like a bar or something and hold strong. And then my phone can just clamp right into here. And I can turn it, horizontal or vertical, depending on how I want to shoot the video. So that's a good tripod. This is, let me see the brand, ARKON. And I think this is about $20 on Amazon. Another tool here is, let's see if I have it in this drawer. Here it is. This is a Rode microphone that plugs right into my iPhone jack here. These are about $60, so these are a lot more expensive. This is what Redeemer sent out to all of their team members, and so you can see it just literally plugs right into the bottom of my iPhone, and then it gives me a directional microphone to pick my audio up better. You can also use a microphone that clips under your shirt to help get better audio. The truth is, and I want to say this, that your iPhone is a great camera without these extra tools. The stability factor is probably the most important function. The microphone, I feel like, is a little excessive at times if you can be in a quiet place. And then on the lighting, the best light you're going to get is sunlight. And so when you can do it in sunlight, that's great. I use, and I've got it here in my office, 2 LED light panels that are, I'll turn it around and see if I can find the NEEWER. And so they're little light panels that are on Amazon for about $100, and they just plug right into a plug, and I can control the dimmer on the back. So just little tools like that. And I like LED because they don't get hot, but if you can see, I'm pretty well lit, and I'm against a wall right now. And so I'm not using the natural light. So those are some of the key tools that we use and that Redeemer sent out. So they sent lights. So they use a ring light that you can actually put around your camera. I personally don't like those, and a lot of that's because I have glasses and you can see the circle in my glasses when you use those, and a lot of people have glasses, and so that's where I like these other lights that you don't get the reflection. If I turn this way, you can see the reflection, but straight on you don't. So little things like that, but honestly, for a lot of people, what you want to do is minimize distractions. And so I don't want there to be, a shadow. I don't want there to be a light in my glasses that people can't look through. I want it to be simple. And I'll give you maybe another tool that I've been sharing with a lot of pastors. To live stream, I use a platform called StreamYard, StreamYard. It's a really easy tool to live stream to YouTube or Facebook or Periscope with Twitter. And you use a webcam. So I use a Logitech webcam, a 920, Logitech 920. I'm giving you a lot of different technologies here. And I use a Blue Yeti microphone. This is a USB microphone. You can see right here. And that plugs right into my USB, and the webcam plugs right into my USB. And I've got an HD, video camera. It's a 1080p video camera, a professional microphone. And, I think the camera is about $50 and the microphone is about $100. And so these little tools, they add up for sure. But when you can add significant quality, and you don't have to be in a big studio, and you can use your phone or use your webcam and preach. The last tip I'll give from a video standpoint is think about your background in minimizing distraction. I invest in, and I'll show you behind the curtain, I invested in a little photo backdrop here. And so you can look around but when I'm on screen, all you see is a white backdrop. And so it kind of disappears and it minimizes distraction, allows you to focus on the message that you're communicating. So just some little intentionalities. And the truth is, because we're going to be doing this for several weeks, whatever you do today, you can do it again tomorrow and be a little bit better tomorrow and a little bit better the next day, and just learn. And you'll learn how to better communicate through a camera. This is our new reality for, and that we know right now. And so learning how to minister through a camera and through a screen is essential in this moment.
I think a lot of pastors are learning AV tech real quick.
Yeah, out of necessity.
The question was asked, any tips for encouraging and sharing prayer and praise items on Facebook, for example?
Yeah, I would, two things. One is, I think the most important post you could post, and I would do this on an almost daily basis, is how can we pray for you today? And if you have a Facebook group, if you have a Facebook page, boy, people need prayer right now. And then encourage people to pray for them, or type out the prayer in the comments, or do a Facebook Live where you get on there and literally pray over all of those things one by one, and allow people to keep doing that, and have a little online prayer service. But integrate prayer into social media. I think prayer in many ways is social. And so integrate it into how you're engaging people on social media is, I think the best thing you can do right now. I would say the other thing is I've thrown out a lot of technologies. Try to minimize, the different places. If your congregation leans into Facebook, use that as much as possible. Don't try to be at Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and, focus on one or two platforms that your congregation is primarily engaged on, and keep the community focused and centralized there.
Another question related to kind of the backdrop, but as more and more pastors are sharing the message online and maybe doing some video throughout the week to connect with the congregation, do you discourage bookcases, fireplaces, etc. in the background?
I don't. I think it really communicates. I'm at home, you're at home. We're all doing this from our homes. I think leading a worship service from your living room, a lot of churches are trying to keep familiarity by doing it from their worship sanctuary. I think leading a worship service from your living room is actually more meaningful from my perspective of, I'm in the same situation as you, and we're doing church in our homes, and this is different for all of us. And so I'm not going to pretend to make you wish that you were in this room with me. I'm going to minister to you in a new and tangible way that we're all living in, in this day. So I would actually highly recommend personalizing that engagement with a fireplace behind you, with, from the kitchen table. What you don't want to do is, I've got 2 young kids. My kitchen table is so cluttered, and if we were talking right now and I had the kitchen table behind me, you would be looking at all the random different, like, what in the world is that? And where did that come from? And did somebody write on the wall? And so I think what you want to do is just minimize distractions when it comes to your backdrop. But I think personalizing, and even just saying, come into my home, I'm going into your home. And this is how we're doing church right now.
Speaking of kids, any suggestions for ministering on these types of platforms specifically to children with disabilities?
It's a good question. I would say lean into Zoom as much as possible when you can, whether it's a one-on-one call, individually, and create some one-to-one opportunities for those kids with other kids or family members. It's a great platform. We're using with our kids Facebook portal that connects to our TV, and it's a really fun interactive platform for kids. And so, but I would say people need people interaction right now, and we cannot get physical interaction, but Zoom or face-to-face interaction is the most tangible interaction that we can have right now. And I think everybody needs that. And so lean into creating as much FaceTime. My kids are actually using Zoom for their classes now. And they're interacting with their friends on Zoom on a daily basis in their classroom, and they're having to learn that reality. And it's so fun for them, honestly, seeing their friends on that screen. And I think when you can create for anyone, and obviously those in the special needs community, that somebody took the time to come, and it's almost like they visited your house to do a face-to-face video call. I just think you can't, from a pastoral care standpoint right now, you can't do too much of that. And so whether that's group community calls or just one-on-one calls, getting face-to-face, I think is the most valuable ministry you can do right now.
Nils, I have a question. I've been seeing a lot online about churches who are attempting to do outreach or missions, because there's just so many people who are really vulnerable who may not be in our churches, but they are in our communities. Are you seeing churches reach out to specific populations, and what kind of technology are they using? And I'm thinking about like you don't anticipate that homeless people have necessarily any way to communicate online, but are there ways that churches are reaching out to the places where homeless people are going for help, for example, or even people who may be in the disability community who are served regularly, for example, by community health centers and that sort of thing? Are you seeing a shift or a new way that churches are using technology?
Honestly, I haven't. I wish I was hearing more of that, and I think this is where something like maybe an Amazon Fire TV stick would be really helpful. I've heard of some churches sending these to prisons, in jails where people can watch church there. But every community center should have an Amazon Fire TV stick where they could stream services in those places. And now that you have those services online, making that accessible or available. But I'm not seeing that like I think we should. I think there's a reality now though in our world, and I see here in New York, we've got a high homeless population. Almost every homeless person I see in New York has a smartphone still, and there's still ministry opportunities and engagement opportunities through digital technology with a lot of the homeless community. And but I do think I think at the core it's really being thoughtful and intentional. I believe we're in a moment right now as a church that a lot of I hate hearing churches say canceled, that they keep saying we've canceled our services. And I think we really need to be using the language. We've moved our services to this website, or we've moved our services to Facebook. We've moved our small group to Zoom. We've moved, and now people are not, for our family, getting our kids or a special needs family, getting everybody in the car and to the church, and the complications of, is the classroom going to work out? Well, now they're a click away from your church. And so it has actually never been easier for somebody to engage with your church. I believe there's going to be some churches that come out of this quarantine time double the size because they leaned into this time. They ministered to people, everyone right now everyone is anxious. They're unsure. We don't know, what's going to happen over the next few weeks. And I think they need their church more than ever, and communities need church more than ever. I saw a message from Facebook earlier that Facebook cares about the faith community, and they want to. They know the community needs the faith community right now, and so this is just a time, I think, for pastors and ministry leaders to be leaning in, and I think that comes from and I think we need not we need to think about everybody in that, and everybody in our communities, from the homeless to special needs to those that are just families that are just home. I mean, everyone is anxious right now, and they need their church, and we need each other. And so I think it's just an important time to be leaning into these technologies. But my hope is, even in this conversation, that as much as possible, the technology gets out of the way, that we not focus on the technology, and we focus on how can we develop meaningful relationships during this time.
Yeah, we're involved with a couple of different national organizations. Like there's the federal government actually has a group of faith leaders that are working on mental health type issues. And, we've been hearing over and over again, that the faith leaders are really just so critical in the response to, not only to make sure that people are staying at home, but to make sure that everybody is really cared for in this time, and that nobody's getting left behind or getting left out. So, yeah. So are you in contact with?
I see my old friend Diana from Community Bible Church in the chat. So I just want to say hi to Diana. I just noticed the chat pop in. And so she's an old colleague that does an incredible job at CBC.
Well, can I just ask one more question about, obviously you work with a lot of churches and ministries really all around the world, but are you in contact with any local or state or even federal type organizations that are seeking connection with churches, or trying to provide information to churches so that we can be, ministries and churches can be helpful, and things that we might be doing to reach vulnerable people that maybe we haven't been trying so far, or that haven't come up in this conversation?
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything that hasn't come up. So I am a part of the White House faith community leaders, or faith leaders community, and so I have the privilege of being on calls with the vice president and some other team members that share with faith community what the White House is doing to help share with our congregations. And so I was on a call with them on Friday last week, and the key thing that they're communicating is that they don't want to hurt churches. They're doing everything possible that they can, but that we as faith leaders need to be encouraging our congregations to stay home, for our own personal health. And so it's, and I think what we have to do from a faith leader standpoint is to lead, be wise, and to help our congregations make wise choices, but also be present and use the tools that we can to be present. And so I don't know that there's, and I think the school district here in New York right now is figuring out how do we do online education a week. They weren't anticipating this. And so I think we all are having to adjust to the situation. And I think as faith leaders, we need to be encouraging people spiritually. One of the things that Dr. G shared with me yesterday or 2 days ago that has just continued to resonate in me is how the significant effects of quarantine on people psychologically, that this is there's going to be some long-term effects to this, and the more intentional we can be to help minimize people feeling like they're isolated and alone, this is just a desperate need in our congregation. So we don't need to cancel church. We don't need to pause church. We need to lean in as a church right now and be the church more than ever to our community.
Deanna just shared in the chat that they held their Sunday school class through Zoom for the first time. And they actually had a student who hadn't been able to participate for months because of a medical concern, was able to participate. So they're, by doing something new, they're actually reaching people they haven't been able to reach in a long time.
I love it. And you never know. I mean, I think that's one of the exciting things about this. And one of the things I love hearing from pastors, I've got a call tomorrow morning with a church that said, we realize that we will never do church the same after this season. And that the internet is more real than we ever realized. And so as you lean in, I think you're going to see some things and experience some things that are in God is going to move in the midst of that. And so I think it is amazing. You never know what's going to happen as you lean in, and how God's going to surprise us in the midst of these circumstances.
That's for sure. Can you really quickly talk about Facebook Portal? It was something you mentioned.
Yeah, so there's a few different devices that Facebook has put out. Initially, it was almost like a little like a little picture frame that you can set up, and that's what I sent to my mom because she's the least tech savvy in our family. And then the other device that we have bought for the rest of the family, so all the aunts and uncles and other grandparents, is like a little strip that connects to the top of your television and becomes basically a webcam for your television. And so it connects directly to the internet and is connected to Facebook, and it uses Messenger. And so you do video calls through that platform. And so we got it to be able to do living room to living room with our family. And then the neat thing that it has, though, and I think as you really think about even the special needs community, is, my wife's parents read storybooks to our kids through the portal. They have these little storybooks that come in. My kids love that. They're playing these games where it has, like, you wear a hat and you can decorate each other with hats and decorate the room virtually. And there's just these neat activities that you can do through the portal that Facebook has created. And they've really created it for families and for kids. And it's a really high quality product from a technology standpoint, and it's not cheap. I mean, I think it's about $150, but it's a really, that being able to be TV to TV rather than phone to phone. It's one thing to see somebody's face. It's another thing that you see their full body, and you're literally like having a conversation living room to living room. It feels more engaging and realistic versus just a phone FaceTime.
Steve, do you have anything you'd like to add about what's coming down the pike? Unmute. You have to unmute.
Sorry, like some of us with ADHD sometimes have challenges adapting to the technology, but I had an opportunity to spend an hour this morning doing Facebook Live with our morning show hosts on the local Christian radio station, talking a little bit about the psychological and mental health implications of this. And that, as Nils touched on briefly before, one of the things that's going to be really critical is that whatever churches can do to help to promote social connectedness during this time is critical. That when you look at a lot of the research that's out there that shows that people, have better physical health and mental health when they're regularly involved with church, it's thought that the key to that are the network of relationships that people form. And so that, there were lots of churches that were congratulating themselves for going online this past Sunday. And my comment was that you don't need to to take the entire social infrastructure of your church and put it online by this next Sunday. Because, all the public health experts are going to saying that the next 3 or 4 weeks are going to be pretty challenging. And, with so many people, like, sitting around at home alone, hearing lots of, not so great news, the ability that Nils touched on to use these platforms to help people to get connected and to help people give one another hope, becomes really, really critical right now. So that, like, not that they would ever let me run a church or something, but if I was like a lead pastor or an executive pastor, I mean, I would be pushing out Zoom accounts to everybody who's running small groups and Bible studies and doing Christian education. I know that, like, the church at Beth and I go to, one of the elders started a 7:00 at night Bible study last night that they were doing through Zoom. Our pastors have had time that people can, can come into the Zoom room and kind of connect with them and be able to interact with them. And so that doing all of this, we've had a chance to pioneer it for like some of our families with disabilities, but we can take some of the things that we've learned with that and now port it to, to the church as a whole, because everybody's going to be struggling with anxiety. Everybody's, struggling with some degree of loneliness, social isolation, and there's been a tremendous disruption in people's routines. So it'd be really cool if through that, if the church is a constant, and if we actually are able to use technology to promote and to deepen relationships, ultimately, this will have been an incredible blessing.
Well,
All right. Any other? Oh, Catherine, go ahead.
yeah, I want to share one thing before we're done. There was an article written, I guess it came out today. I thought it was yesterday, but it's today, by Ed Stetzer in Christianity Today. It's titled, "This is not the crisis, but it is just a few weeks away." And he has basically step by step what churches should have already done to this point, but it's not too late to get caught up. And then, some of the things that you need to be doing right now to make sure that you are connecting, to Steve's point, having all of your social connectedness online really as quickly as possible, and then just executing whatever plan your church comes up with, and and just being flexible and letting that shift as is needed over the coming days and weeks, because we all know that things changing often, within the same day. We think we're going one direction and then we have to shift just a few hours later. So again, that's on Christianity Today, Ed Stetzer, an article that's out today for churches.
One last question that I would pose to Nils is that I am amazed at all the cool free stuff that he puts out and that other online pastors and people in the church are putting out. So, I would ask Nils, like, people who've been listening to this, where should they go, to be able to discover some of the videos that you've created, other types of resources that are going to be very helpful? And are there a couple of other people, who are doing stuff in the church? I know like Jay Cranda does some great stuff for Saddleback, but a couple of other places like must follow, like websites or accounts for people listening in today.
Great question. I appreciate it, Steve. This is one of those moments, and I got a message from Robert Emmett, the founding pastor at Community Bible Church, who first empowered me 9 years ago to start onlinechurch.com, and he said, "Nils, this is your moment." Like nobody believed in this 9 years ago and thought we were all nuts, but they see this now and they need the things you've learned over the last 9 years. In this moment. And so it's been a privilege for me to try to share as much as I can to as many leaders as I can in this moment, that it is so needed. And I do think that the church will never be the same. And sometimes, and part of that will be hard and bad. And part of that I think is going to be exciting and good, because we've learned some things and we'll engage some people we never would have engaged. But from a resource standpoint, we're putting together a site right now at Dunham and Company. So dunhamandcompany.com, DUNHAM and company.com. Later today, we should have a site up that will list a bunch of free resources. And I've created like 3 ebooks that will be on there of how to host an online service, how to do online small groups. And then there's a podcast episode that will be on there as well, in a webinar of top 10 things to enhance your online church experience. So I've been trying to create as much as I can to help as many as possible in the season. Jay Cranda is another guy that's putting out a lot of stuff. jcranda.com is his website. And Jeff Reed is another guy who's putting out a lot of stuff. And I think it's The Digital Church. If you maybe search The Digital Church and Jeff Reed on Google, you should find it. But he especially from a technology side, is very helpful in just practical, tangible. Here's how a 3-step process of how to do live streaming and things like that. So it's but I think keep it simple with the technology is the best advice I can give to you. Of pick a couple, lean in, and focus on relationships.
Nils, I think the 6-minute video that you put out, I forget if it was Monday or Tuesday, time has no meaning anymore, but it was how to, it was a Zoom tutorial basically.
Yep.
And for anyone who's listening to this that is not super comfortable with Zoom, I recommend that resource at 6 minutes, and it was really helpful.
Very good. And so I'm doing daily lives on my Facebook page and on my YouTube channel. And so my YouTube channel, I think I have about 100 videos of social media tips and tricks. I put out a weekly video on there, and I've been doing daily in the past week and a half or so. So if you just search my name, Nils Smith, on YouTube, you should find my YouTube channel and a bunch of different things there. And Steve was on there with me a couple days ago. Days are lost now. I don't know.
Yeah.
2 days ago, but it was recently, and it was a great conversation that's on there.
So I also want to point out that the Key Ministries website, so it's keyministry.org. We do have a page dedicated to these kinds of resources, helping churches and families deal with the coronavirus. This video will be posted on there, and we'll be able to include some of the links that Nils mentioned today. All right. So lots of thank yous are happening in the chat, Nils, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for having me. It's a privilege.
And so again, this will be hosted on the keyministry.org website. And we do usually monthly disability ministry video roundtables. Right now, if you go to keyministry.org and look at events, you'll see we've added some additional opportunities for us to connect. On Mondays at noon Eastern time. We have an open roundtable, so it's like this, except we can all see each other, where we're sharing kind of what's going on, how our ministries are adapting, best practices, that type of thing. So everyone is encouraged to join that. And I think that's it. Catherine, do you have anything else to add?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you soon.